Welcome back to another episode of the Basalon Cycling Podcast. I'm your host Sherry and my co-host today, Gerion. Today we're talking about Transcontinental Race 2026, the race preview. Is this the end of an era? Let's find out. And subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss the latest videos and the new upcoming one of Patagonia. The adventure continues, part 2 into Argentina and then towards the south. So stay tuned. So it's time for the Transcontinental race starting this weekend. 19th of July is very exciting. So for those who are not familiar with the event, this is probably one of the biggest events in ultra cycling or the biggest road, let's call it like this. I think nowadays is more of all road.
Yeah, all road. Probably more gravel than road. Yeah.
And for this podcast today, we are using the new Insta360 Mic Pro. Here is really good quality. You can use it directly with the Insta360 cameras like the X5, or in this case, plug it to your DSLR cameras and even your phone. So don't forget to check the links in the description below to find out more and for exclusive offers. How cool it is. You can even personalize it. Exactly, and it's self-supported and self-routed, so riders have to create the route. And this year's Transcontinental Race 2026, TCR number 12, is probably one of the longest, 5,000 kilometers with 64,000 meters of elevation. It really depends on which route the riders choose, and it goes from Norway, Trondheim, all the way to Greece. So it's going to be very interesting. We did the pairs in TCR number 9 and 10, and it was already very challenging. And I think the longest we did was 4,000 kilometers.
Yeah, a bit over, like 4,200, I think, at the end. Our route was probably 200 kilometers more than it needed to, yeah.
Yeah, so that's one thing that it might change this year. So in the age of AI, when we did our route, it was just commute, ride with GPS, looking at YouTube videos of motorcyclists to see if the road was okay, and Google Earth. And what do you think it will change with AI? Do you think the routes will be similar?
Yeah, I think it's probably most of the riders are gonna plan it old school, and then they maybe use AI to verify certain sectors or to get some ideas around how to navigate some bend roads. But I think it's definitely the beginning of a big change with Google Maps rolling out AI agent functionalities and being able to actually chat with a software to find the quickest road and to avoid certain difficulties created by the organizers. I think it's going to level the playing field in a lot of ways, because it makes route planning more efficient and gives people the optionality and the toolkit to get to the more optimized route quicker.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting factors of the Transcontinental race, especially if you're not watching like we are doing this year, is that riders have to make the routes. So the routes are very interesting, and sometimes they take weird routes like us. We tried to take a hike bike that wasn't very successful several times. But as you say, maybe with the AI, the routes converge more, and it's not, there's not a lot of different routes. So you already saw that in the previous edition, that the routes were not as different as it used to be, even though the organizers always try with the band roads and the parcours to make it more interesting in terms of choices. And also this year, the parcours are quite interesting. Every year we went there were more and more gravel parcours, and this year it looks like it keeps on going on this trend. So it starts in Norway. There's some gravel in Norway, I think, already.
Yeah, I think you know it quite well from Bright Midnight. I think we've been to parts of it, bike packing around the Bright Midnight, like Røros, the UNESCO World Heritage, quite a nice area, but not as flat as it looks like on the map. So certainly quite challenging terrain.
Yeah, and it's quite challenging in terms of what gear would you take, because they go from Norway, which it could be like -2 or more, and then you go to the extreme heat in Greece. I never suffered so much in the heat like in Greece. I mean, I don't know how many heat strokes I had. You said like I was gone for like an hour because of the heat.
Yeah, I think in one of the hottest days, you passed out, and it took me like over an hour of putting ice on your head just to get you like back to reasonably conscious to continue riding. Yeah.
Well, if you haven't watched the Transcontinental race video number 9 and 10, make sure to check it out. It's very interesting. You can see our full experience. But yeah, the heat in Greece is really challenging. Plus, riders can have to carry all their gear throughout the race, so you have to carry maybe your massive puffy jacket all the way to Greece, so you have maybe to add more carrying capacity, therefore weight. We saw like it was like the trend of going more minimalistic to save weight, but I think in this case will be quite difficult. And also the gear choice in terms of bike, because we have of course the parcours in Norway that might have some gravel, then the first bottleneck of the race, taking the ferry out of Scandinavia into Europe and facing the Tatra Mountains in Slovakia. Is like a two-part parcours that is through a national park with some gravel, some restrictions, or the time you can cross the park. And then I believe they go into Bosnia near Sarajevo. We've been there quite a few times in TCR 9, 10, in Bihar Ultra Race. The area is challenging and also gets really hot. And then into Albania in the area near Peshkopi. That was TCR number 9 for us around this area, and it was like, I think at the point where I collapsed, it's overtime, like I just cried like crazy because the off-road parkour was so hard and I was so scared. And from there they go into Greece. There is a small ferry, but I don't think it's gonna be as decisive as the one in the Baltic Sea. I think it adds a bit of an interesting layer for those watchers, no? You kind of have to play your strategy.
Yeah, I think one of the highlights of last year in terms of dot watching perspective was definitely the race for the ferries, and this year with multiple ferries might even turn out to be more exciting than last year.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of race favorites, we have Christoph Strasser. He's back with an optimized setup, so it will be interesting to see how he does. Robin Campele, the previous year's winner. Last year was Victor Bossoni, and then Martin Morris, that was second last year, and he did really well. He was actually ahead of Bossoni in catching the ferry, so it will be interesting to see what he does, because I think he mentioned he loves the race for the ferry, right?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see a ferry specialist, see if Christoph finally adopts tubeless tires, or if we're seeing another series of drama with him fixing punctures on the gravel. And then of course Robin being back at what looks to be very good form. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting race, especially this year with Robin, who tends to be quite good on the climbs, and Christoph, who's really good in the flats, and Moritz, who's also really good in the flats. With such a long and relatively flat parkour, it's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, we also have other names like Robert Muller, which we met in TCR number 9, I think, going up Livigno. It was a very challenging part because it was like rain and storm all the time in Switzerland. And then in the women's, we have the clear favorite is probably Jana Kessenheimer. And then we have some non-riders that we will be dot watching, like Nicole van Battenburg from the Netherlands. So it will be quite nice to see how she does, and also like a previous year's winner like Josh Evett. So it's a really stacked field this year.
Yeah, after him dropping out, I think it was TCR number 10 with knee pain.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how he's doing this year.
Yeah.
Play his strength with all the experience he has from the ultra races in I think quite a difficult one to plan. I heard horror stories from people planning routes and trying to avoid banned roads in Poland. So yeah, let's see. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And also the parkour in Slovakia with the restriction in the national park, because there are some parts that you cannot cycle that might be closed in certain times. So that's going to be also challenging. And I think on the Dot Watchers preview, they were telling that they were looking at the Strava segment in Albania, and that some mountain bikers broke a few spokes there. So you think it might be similar to the one we did? I mean, it took us like the whole night, 12 hours. I walked the whole parkour, by the way. So
Peshkopi part 2,
yeah. And what would you take? Would you go more aero, like time trial road, or would you go for all-road or gravel setup?
I personally tend to underbike a bit, so I think I would follow the recent trend of going full on aero. So skin suit, everything tricked out, and just risk it a bit while bringing an aero bike and minimum kit. But It's a bit of a risky strategy considering how much gravel there is and how long the race is. So, I mean, going for TT tires and an aero road bike is probably a bit risky, but it's yeah.
Yeah, and do you think it's the end of an era in ultra cycling? We see the professionalization of the events and also marginal gains. Like most of the top contenders are now going with full-on skin suit, which you were kind of weird before if you started TCR on a skin suit and fully tricked out aero bike, but now we see it more and more. Most of the contenders like who want to go for the overall win go like full-on skin suit, marginal gains. And what is curious, when we started also most people went for the sleep strategy of pushing sleep deprivation, but seems like it's shifting more to resting and really pushing the power during the days. And we also see that because of this professionalization, you can live of it. Maybe riders that want to go for the top places have more time to train and really dedicate time to it. So they go much faster and it's really like a faster race, rather shifting more from unsupported adventure to more, I will say, like what happened in gravel racing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the last few editions, you definitely see that the rest times are getting longer and the overall speed is going up. So a bit more akin to stage racing than to what we've seen in the race across Americas of a decade ago, with 1 or 2 hours of sleep a night and just trying to extend the sleep deprivation as much as possible. I think especially with a 5,000 kilometer route like this one, speed is probably the better way to go. Especially sleep deprivation might get you through 3 or 4 days, but this is a very, very long route. So we're talking about plus 10, I would assume, for the winners. And then sleep and going fast is probably a better idea, and timing the ferries right.
Yeah, and what's your bet for the winner this year? Looking at the route and the different parcours.
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think I'm gonna bet on Christoph bouncing back from 2 defeats and coming back. It's a flat course. It's a lot about planning and timing, and I think he's the one that's probably best prepared.
Yeah, I agree. I would also love to see Christoph winning again. He's really a really nice rider and he really dedicates a lot to the race and brings so much. He's really like, sharing all his experiences also in the podcast and everything. And I think he went to the wind tunnel and did a few improvements. So let's see, hopefully switch from tube to tubeless, or at least not more sturdy tubes.
Yeah, and I think what I really like is Christoph is always like really trying to live an example in like sticking to the rules and being like super diligent on like riding according to the spirit of the race. And we've seen in the past in recent races and in recent TCRs that it kind of shifted a bit more to be very, very competitive, and people like stretching it into gray zone and like doing things that are maybe not 100% within the spirit of the race, might be within the rules, but not necessarily in the spirit of the race. And I think he's setting a great example there, and so I would really like to see him win.
That's great. So what do you think, to finish up, is the future of ultra cycling? Do you think it will be more on the path of gravel, like professionalization, and there will be maybe a category for pros and as mere mortals, or it will continue to be like this, more like niche self-supported adventure?
I certainly hope that it won't, but I think with sponsor money and interest and notoriety of these races, we're probably heading into that direction.
Well, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and leave your comments below. Who do you think will win TCR number 12? And what gear would you choose for this year's edition? And stay tuned for more updates. Until the next one.